Thank you, Martha. As we all know, the Democratic Party is not democratic, both state in Massachusetts and nationally. PDA is a national PAC, and we endorse candidates for the House of Representatives throughout the primary season throughout the country. And we saw how establishment Democrats and the Democratic structure, sometimes with Republican backing, work to defeat our candidates. A party that represented all of its grassroots base would do differently. We hear that the Democratic Party is a big tent party, but the anti-democratic control of the party apparatus determines who speaks, who is represented inside the tent, and where the money gets spent. When an anti-dark money proposal was brought up to the DNC recently, and Larry may talk about that, it was not even discussed nor voted upon. This country has problems, but until the big tent party opens itself up, both in Massachusetts and nationally, we won't be able to solve them. Making the Democratic Party democratic is a national movement, and we wholeheartedly support it.
And now it is my honor to introduce Larry Cohen. Larry is chair of Our Revolution nationally. He's also on the National Democratic Committee and is a leader there in trying to spearhead increased democracy and transparency at the national level. Larry.
Okay, great. Thanks, Martha. Russell, great to see you again, and so many other people on this Zoom. So, as Martha said, this is going on exactly what you're doing tonight in more than 20 states at different levels. And but the key to it all is that it's from the bottom up. It's people getting involved at the precinct level in other states, at the county level or at the district level in Massachusetts, and then at the state level. And as Martha said, we now have a group of about 65 of us, none from Massachusetts, who are in a national reform group. And as Russell said, we spearheaded a resolution there that got torched about dark money in Democratic primaries. But we had 35 DNC members signing that. I could talk more, but I want to focus more on what you're going to do. But it never got to the floor. It's a short answer. On the other hand, as many of you know, at the 2016 Democratic National Convention, because of the Bernie movement, everything's not about Bernie, but this certainly is a result of Bernie 2016. We had 1,300 delegates elected, and we negotiated a Unity Reform Commission at the national level, which certain states have done something similar. It's another way you all could approach it. And out of that, we got rid of superdelegates and a bunch of other things about caucuses and how they were run, about primaries and how they were run, mostly focused. We set up an ombuds committee about rule breaking at the Democratic Party. They've yet to launch it. They've finally named it. It took 4 years. That just happened at that meeting 2 weeks ago. But that says to me, change is possible. The much more important change is at the state level, because the only way to change the party nationally is the 57, we call them state parties, some of them are territories, plus Democrats abroad, DC, is change there. And there's been radical change since 2015 at that state level. In fact, states like Oregon are all people like us. Everything doesn't have to be all people like us, but I'm just saying, this is a result. Nebraska, Oregon, Nevada, 1/3 of California, majority of Arizona. They censored Sinema for her refusal on the filibuster for voting rights. She's almost certainly not going to win a party nomination in 2024 when her term is up as senator. So it's not all over the country. It's predominantly west of the Mississippi and in the Midwest. The Northeast, for reasons you can all figure out, it's the old guard. New York is the worst party. New Jersey, where I spent 20 years, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. Philadelphia is actually better than it was in the days of Frank Rizzo when I was in high school, and he was leading the party, the police commissioner. So change is possible. It's change for the Democratic Party that many of you mentioned is only possible if we change it at the state level, and then that pyramid's up, and then we still will have to fight at the DNC to change it there. The best single example is what Russell mentioned. In Democratic primaries, just for the House of Representatives this year, there was over $150 million spent in primaries, dark money, most of it Republicans, corporate, right-wingers, in Democratic primaries, not Democrats, dark money. That would be bad as well. Why does that matter? Because Citizens United is not about the Democratic primaries. It's only about general elections. The resolution we brought was to ban dark money in Democratic primaries. I didn't have much of an illusion we would pass that there. But the key is now to take that back to states and look at what happens when $11 million is spent to defeat Andy Levin, an incumbent, let alone the many insurgents that that many of us, that groups like OR and PDA and others supported all over the country. So I'm going to stop there, but this is not hopeless. Every state where people have launched a progressive group, they've gained ground, not right away, but within a year or two. And as I said to begin with, in 20 states it was flipped, where now the leadership of those states is coming from the reformers themselves. I like to say not just about the Democratic Party, but in general in America, our problem is the rulers. Is the rules, not just the rulers. Our political work for most of us is all too often just about candidates. It's the rules that prevented democracy for the 21st century. It's the rules of the Democratic Party and of the country as a whole that prevent real change, the things that we all love and that we all want to fight for. We're not really here, any of us, to work on rules in the state party of Massachusetts or any other state. What we're here for is the health care that we need, the climate change that we must have, the voting rights, the treatment of immigrants. The list is enormous, racial justice. But we're not going to get those things in the country that's structured this way unless we change this party and unless we change the rules inside the party and outside. Martha, I'm going to stop there. I'm really excited to see you all and carry it on.
Thank you so much, Larry. I really appreciate what you had to say. I would like now to turn the meeting over, present on the most recent state Democratic committee meeting.
Sure, I'm going to be relatively brief. I think Larry did a great job of, Larry and Russell did great jobs of kind of setting the stage. My role is to simply recap a little bit of the history of what some of us have tried to do over the last 6 years inside the party, and then speak a little bit very quickly about the most recent state committee meeting. From the beginning for Our Revolution Massachusetts, trying to do work inside the party, it was Bernie's call to us to get engaged, has been to try to build a stronger voice for left progressives within the state party organization in particular, but also, and we haven't performed as well on this scale, also at the local level. I'm really thrilled to see the number of local town committee members, ward committee members and chairs that are here tonight, because I think ultimately that's where an awful lot of what we need to do has to start. Following the model that the Sanders campaign, Larry led a lot of it, implemented at the 2016 National Convention. At the 2017 Democratic State Convention in Massachusetts, ORMA led a really full-bore, full-on effort to take what was, a reasonably decent set of platform planks in the state party platform and turn it into something that would rival the progressive nature of any platform at any state level or at the national level around the country. I think we had a lot of success. A number of the people who were really involved in that are here tonight. We brought a series of resolutions, platform amendments to the floor of the 2017 convention. We won almost every single one of them. We did try to move on a few resolutions that would have addressed the question of what we're calling currently the lifetime members, the 20-year seat holders. we didn't win on those. We made some progress on one that wasn't followed through by the state party. Subsequently, we had a successful campaign to pressure our state party into supporting during the 2019-2020 primary cycle for presidential candidates. We successfully got a unanimous vote from our state party to call on the Democratic National Committee to hold a climate-focused debate among the presidential candidates. This was a position that the National Party opposed. There were groups around the country in different state party organizations that tried pushing forward on that. Our state delegation, in keeping with the theme of tonight's meeting, the questionable democracy, small d democracy of our state party, the majority of our state delegation to the Democratic National Committee ignored the unanimous vote of the state party and voted against the creation of this debate. And so it's a data point. It's a way of showing that in fact we can exercise an opinion, but it doesn't mean we exercise control, even when it's all of us exercising that opinion. Subsequently, we moved on in this past national state convention cycle. We moved on to focusing on what are the 20-year seat holders, and the fact that not just the 20-year seat holders, but, and this gets contentious, the add-on seat holders on the state committee are not elected by anybody other than other state committee members. Just share a quick little story of my own. When I joined the state committee in 2016, excuse me, I went to all 4 of the major meetings that year, and every single meeting was simply about electing somebody to something. We never did any actual business of any kind. And I'm sorry to say that that's mostly been the case ever since. There have been a few moments where issues rose to the surface, some which were handled well, others were not, like the Alex Morse campaign situation in Western Mass. But in general, the party itself internally at the state level is really just a good old boy and frankly, good old girl network. People, we really don't do things. We thought this year that by focusing on the unelected nature of some of these seats in the state party, that we could eventually have an impact on changing the balance of power so that people who are actually elected by voters, by Democratic voters, or by local ward and town committees through their caucuses could increase the share of power we have, and in the process bring more progressives into the state committee. We, as Martha outlined, we didn't succeed with that. The last thing I want to share is that we have tried, and there was some success in the last cycle in 2020, to bring new blood, new leadership into the state party at the grassroots level. And it was not something organized by ORMA or this group in particular, although Jared was part of it. A group of young, very diverse candidates for state party seats ran and won in their elections. It changed the balance of power a little bit, but as Martha pointed out, not enough to change the election of the state party chair. The last thing I should mention is that, consistent with what Larry was talking about the vote at the national party level, we heard a report at the last state committee meeting from our DNC members, and at no point did any of them mention the vote that didn't take place on the question of dark money. So before that section of the agenda wrapped up, I got the floor and asked the party chair to just to register my complaint, my concern about the undemocratic nature of how that issue was treated at the national party level. And as others, Nancy or Jared can share their perspective on this, but I was essentially lectured on how I had no clue what I was talking about and did not have the facts straight, and that therefore it was not even a legitimate issue to bring up. I think that that's the kind of thing we face with the current leadership, and it's one of the areas that we need work on. But to do that work, we're going to need more people on the state committee who share our perspective. And with that, I'll stop. Thanks.
But moving on, Henry Wortis, do you want to give us the survey results?
All right. So everyone who responded to Rand's invite or the committee's invite had the opportunity to answer questions on a survey. This is not everything that people responded to. I've just selected some data points and just want to bring them to your attention. So one question was whether people think that DSC members lack accountability, and opinions varied from strongly agreed to strongly disagree, but overall 82% of us felt that DSC members lack accountability. Yep. And then we asked, do you support having the party continue with the practice of having lifetime unelected, they're elected through the DSC, unelected state committee members? And that was clear given the choices of yes, maybe, and no. 84% are against the practice. Now, we're a select group, but that's who we are. And so one thought was, well, maybe 20-year members could get some sort of perk, some sort of bonus. And so we just made up one, and we just asked whether 20-year members, well, this asks whether they should be lifetime members, and people, as I said, 84% are against. And then we said, what about giving them the ability to have 8-year terms? They don't have to run every 4 years, 8 years. And it turns out that while 38% agreed with that, 62% disagreed. So people don't want to have that sort of bonus. And then we asked whether add-on members, rather than being selected by the DSC, should they be elected by the populations they represent? In other words, if there's add-on LGBTQ members, should they be elected by self-identified members of, in effect, a caucus? And 84% of us agreed with that idea. And we asked a couple of related questions. We asked whether add-on members should be elected by the DSC, the current practice, and 34% agreed. So there's a bit of an overlap between the last answer group and this. Okay. Then we said, should add-on members be appointed by party leaders? And the reason we asked that question is that we know in practice that does in effect happen. Gus will say, okay, you're on. But it turns out that only 8% of us think that that's good practice. And then we asked whether dark money should be allowed. And in the context, it was dark money being used in primaries. And there were a number of possibilities, and a small number thought that primary contests should be, in effect, paid for by the party so that individual candidates don't have to raise money. A slightly larger group felt that it's all right to have money from any source. You just have to be forced to disclose the source. But the overwhelming majority felt no dark money should be allowed. And 86% of the people who responded to varying degrees said they were interested in working on reforming the party. And only a small number said not interested. And we assume the not interested are not here. So that's the feedback on your votes. Thank you. Over to you, Martha.
Thanks, Henry. I think Rand is going to lead us into a breakout process.